All right, welcome. This is just going to be a short presentation, a quick introduction into what we're going to start moving into live presentations. And you've come to know me, so you know when I say this is going to be brief, probably turn out to be an hour and a half. But there's just a couple of terms I want you to get familiar with in a couple of styles. So when we're talking about presentations, we're going to talk about formal and informal mostly. So a formal presentation is going to be a lot of what you're going to be presenting at the end of the term, where we're going to get dressed up and you're going to be in front of both myself and some other people. And we know the situation. We know you are presenting. It's very formal. We set aside time. Now, these are usually when you get into your careers are going to be the presentations to superiors. We do formal presentations internally. We also do presentations externally. So clients, or as you've seen, even a lot of the TED Talks that I've posted for you to watch could be considered formal. I know a lot of times they have informal flair to them, but they're very formal. There's structure, there's a time limit, there's a greater purpose. Now, informal is exactly what you're doing now. So meeting with your team. Now, although you should have an agenda and structure, we still call it informal. If someone gets up in the middle of it and goes to grab a sandwich, usually no one cares so much. Whereas if it was a very formal presentation and you just kind of walked off, it would definitely have more than likely a negative impact. And so it's good to have in mind, just like when we were writing, when we're keeping in mind our audience, we still want to keep in mind our audience. So not only what format do we use, but what are those elements? And a lot of times how we dress, how we speak, just how we conduct ourselves, split us between formal and informal. In informal, with colleagues that you've been around for the last 20 years and you know each other very well, you may very well just curse, use acronyms, not get dressed up, meet for coffee, meet for breakfast. Where formal, you do want to present your best self at all times, and you're probably going to be working in a background where some of those things are not appropriate. And then there's consultative. So consultative is a little more intimate. We're trying to find some information from someone. So there's usually a back and forth. I'm going to ask you a question, or you're going to tell me a story. And it's usually in a smaller office setting. Like I said, very intimate. We're looking for questions and answers so we can help you. Now, what about a classroom? A classroom is going to fall between formal and informal. Yes, it's structured. We have, time limits and goals, but a lot of times, for the sake of learning, you'll ask a question, we'll get off topic, or we do exercises that wouldn't normally be done in a strictly formal kind of structure. Now, within formal and informal, there's another set of what we can start categorizing things as. And there's examples for these. You'll see a new file folder in your file section that's called Next Level. And really what that file is for those of you who really want to take your presentation and writing skills and just your professionalism to the next level, you're going to want to watch what I post in there. That's really there for those who want to put in the extra work to just improve themselves. Now, there's examples of each of these different kinds of presentations in there, and it will give you an idea of the flavor of them and how they are informal or formal. Now, neither one really fits exactly into formal and informal. Sometimes you can have a town hall that's very informal. Sometimes it could be very formal. And so I just given a couple of examples, and you're probably very familiar with them, just haven't really, maybe never given it a name. And even in the files for the press conference, I even put a satire of one but I'm sure you're very familiar with them. And just to kind of go over the ways that they can be both informal and formal, the White House, and I think that's a great example. I just didn't want to put one in because they're an hour long. Very formal session. There's rules of asking questions. It's only reporters allowed and only certain reporters. But also a press conference we see every week in sports, where after the game and they talk to players, so they can be a little more downplayed. So table talk, and there's an example in the files, is generally what you're going to get in when we think of business meetings or just getting together in your department and talking. Like we've spoken about before, structure in these smaller presentations still has an importance. And in the example I posted, in that table talk, there's actually an example of a break off into a presentation. More informal than what would be happening in front of clients or superiors, but I still think it's a good example. Speeches. So we're familiar with these graduations, the many TED Talks I posted, and I just posted another one for this example. We've all heard or maybe even written our own speeches. And so this is another, and again, they can be informal, they can be formal. There's a variety of styles and ways to go about these based upon our audience. I already spoke about the press conference, and a town hall is a lot like a press conference, but a bit more interactive and a bit more unrestricted, even though there are some that are very restrictive. So it would be a lot of times the example is used when politicians kind of go out to get votes, and they'll stop off at some town, and audience members can ask questions, and that's an example of a town hall. The example I posted in the files is a virtual town hall from LaGuardia. So you're not going to see the many screen faces like we have in class, but they went ahead and constructed it so questions could be submitted earlier before the actual presentation and addressed. And that's basically just an overview of different kinds of presentations. We'll talk about this more as we start delving into things, but just wanted to give you some quick insight, and I will see you in class.